Happy Friday, guys. It is puck time for Friday, December 20th, 5 days until Christmas. Andrew and Bryan here with you to break down 3 games. And I'm going to mention some props as well. We also have best bets at the end, and we're going to have some great promotional stuff to get into on the show. So looking forward to breaking down some of these games, and also happy, Bryan, that we have some games to mention here on this Friday, as some Fridays, there's like nothing going on, and some Fridays, like today, we have a handful of games. So good morning to you, Bryan.
Good morning. A little bit of a rough night for me. Our friend Carmine came to town, and the wives and Marco and his wife, we all went out to the hockey game last night to see the Golden Knights, which worked out well for me, as I had them as the favorite last night. And then in my neighborhood, there was a big fire out in Summerlin last night, so not a lot of sleep last night as fire alarms going off and everything, but hopefully we got us some winners, and we can count this as a positive day.
Winners always makes you feel better. If it's been a bad day already and then you don't win, it kind of adds on. But let's hope it can make up for the lack of sleep and for the fire. I hope everything ends up being okay, though, with what happened there. But as mentioned, 3 games: Habs, Red Wings, Hurricanes, Capitals, Rangers, and the Dallas Stars. That one should be interesting to talk about here, Bryan. But let's talk about the first game. And, well, you know, this is a team that I've always loved to talk about. I could talk your ear off for hours about this team, Canadiens and Red Wings. And I'll throw it to you with this. I always like picking your brain about prices and numbers on certain games. Well, the last time out for the Habs, they were home underdogs against the Sabres when the Sabres were on a 10-game losing streak. And look, I'm not going to say I expected this by any means, but the Habs won 6-1. And the Sabres were steamed all the way to minus 140. So this situation here is interesting. They're playing another team kind of similar to them in the Atlantic Division. First of a back-to-back against the same team. How do you approach this?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that Montreal-Buffalo game, because unfortunately I was on Buffalo in that game. I looked over the schedule and I said to myself, I go, they've got to win this game. I said, they've lost all these games in a row. That schedule's brutal the rest of the way. This has to be the all-in game for Buffalo. And then all of a sudden I look at the first scoring and I'm thinking, oh my God. And then I'm thinking, why did I take a team on a big losing streak as a road favorite? Well, there's a reason why it's a road favorite, and there's a reason why money was coming in on it, but it didn't work. And a lot of times you could break these games down and you could try to get in the heads of the players, which is one of the things I try to do. And I'm thinking, if I play for that team, I'm thinking, this is going to go on through the holidays if I don't get a victory here. And it didn't happen. So you can do all you can, handicap the games, but the players got to go out and play. And they just have not played well as of late. Getting back to this game, Montreal-Detroit in 5-on-5 expected goal share. We find both teams very comparable. Canadiens 44.63, Red Wings 45.84. Montreal has played 18 of their 31 games at home, while Detroit has only played 16 of their 31 at home. On the season, Detroit has a plus 12 net goal advantage. And since they did play a couple less games at home, I would expect that to be a little bit better. So Detroit's the better team here, no doubt about it. It's the first game at home in a home and home series, as you mentioned, for these two. Montreal played once in the last 5 days, while spending 6 of their 8 games playing at home. That's a pretty good scheduling advantage for Montreal. Detroit's also played just once in the last 5 games. And while each team is off of a victory, I always take a look at that. If it's too close for me to make a pick, I like to take the team that is off of a loss, especially if it's a good team. And we'll get to that a little bit later, one of the other games we're going to handle. I've got the Red Wings as a slightly better team, but I just can't feel comfortable laying the number with this team. They've been so inconsistent, and Montreal is one of those teams. And, you know, I made money on Montreal for the last 5 or 6 years, even though they're not good, by trying to pick the right spot for them. Detroit's the better team, but not at this number. I'm not going to be interested in this one.
It's kind of how I feel as well about this, Bryan, and trying my best to stay non-biased here, because I know this Canadiens team and kind of who they are. They are the epitome of inconsistency. Worth mentioning, they just traded 2 nights ago for Alex Carrier from the Nashville Predators. It was a 1-for-1 swap. Justin Barron for Alex Carrier. 2 defensemen that play similar type of roles, I guess. Both right shot defensemen. The only difference was age, Brian, really. The big change was age, and, it was kind of a guy in his early 20s swapped for a guy in his later 20s. So we'll see what type of, defensive play that brings for the Canadiens. But sometimes I find when a team trades for a defenseman, kind of wakes up the whole defensive core as well. Not just that new player playing well, but the rest of the guys around him are like, all right, we got a new guy here on our blue line. We have to play well defensively a little bit. And, it's always such a hold your nose type of game and type of play when you're going to take an under featuring these 2 teams. But that's kind of where I want to go here. If you look at the expected goals 5-on-5, and this is something that you look at quite a bit, the Canadiens' power play has improved a ton this year. It's been great. Last year, it was brutal. Power play has been great. Patrick Laine, since coming back, he scored a hat trick against Buffalo. All 3 of those goals, Brian, were on the power play. 5-on-5, Patrick Laine and Kirby Dach and Uri Slafkovsky, those guys, they have not really figured it out. They're just playing very well in the power play still. Detroit coming off games 2 against the Flyers, 1 against the Sabres, 1 against the Senators, 1 against the Maple Leafs. They have been jam-packed with a schedule facing Atlantic Division teams. And I'm not sure how much you believe in this Philadelphia team, but pretty much back-to-back games against the Flyers with a game against the Leafs mixed in between there. They've kind of been playing some weak competition for what feels like 2.5 weeks now. I think that this is one of those scenarios where one of these meetings is going to go over and one of these meetings is going to go under. And I think the first one is going to be the one to go under. So give me under 6 in this one, Canadiens and Red Wings. As you stated, both these teams are coming off games where they put up numbers. Look, the Red Wings and the Habs both put up 6 goals on their own the last time they played a game. That means that they would push tonight's total all on their own if they scored the same amount of goals that they scored last game. I'm not banking that total off last game. I'm banking it off this game, and I think these 2 teams will kind of be really tight checking, match up, and take this game very serious heading in to a short holiday break. So I'm going to go under in this one. And there's a guy playing tonight that I've kind of been crapping all over a little bit. His name is Patrick Kane, and he's a veteran player, a guy that was an absolute superstar at one point, and he's definitely on the back part of his career. I'm going to take him over 2.5 shots on goal because the one thing I know about this Canadiens team is they rely heavily on Montembeault, just the same way they relied on Carey Price, the same way they've relied on so many of their goaltenders over the years. They still give up a ton of shots. So Patrick Kane, over 2.5 shots on goal, that's plus money. You can shop around plus 110, plus 115. That one's very intriguing for me because there was a time and place when this guy was an absolute superstar. And if there's one team that players can find their confidence in against, a lot of times it is the Montreal Canadiens, as much as I hate to say it, Brian. So that might be a pretty good play to look at. Overall, we don't see these type of scenarios happen very often. And actually, we saw this exact matchup and exact same home and home take place last year at the end of the season in April between the Detroit Red Wings and the Montreal Canadiens. How much do you look at, taking a look at tonight's game and then tomorrow's game? Do you look at how a team played tonight and they want to bounce back or different things? I kind of look at it as in baseball, the doubleheader because of the rain delay. You kind of, you handicap the first game, then you look at the second game for how the first game went. Do you think you might end up being involved in the second game if you don't end up playing tonight?
Yeah. In fact, something I always take a look at is when you're playing the back-to-backs like that. That's one of the reasons why I spent so much time on expected goals. And a lot of times you will see a team that should have won and does not win. And you also have to take a look at the goalies because rarely do they play the same goalie in back-to-back. So if a team is able to get a victory with their lesser goalie, I think they go into the next game a little bit overconfident. So I love it, which is why I've always done so well in the NHL playoffs, is because you know what you're playing. You can react. It's like the NBA playoffs. To me, the NBA playoffs are the easiest handicap there is out there, especially the first quarter. But those have gone away. It was a gold mine for a long time. But yeah, you just you put yourself in the position of the players. You say, "Hey, we were coming in here. We're trying to win 1 out of 2. We got the win with our lesser goalie." And they get a little sigh of relief there. And then the next night, they're playing the same team who's upset because of the way they played the night before. So, yeah, it's something I wish when we had the COVID season, they were playing a lot of, and that was one of my better seasons I've ever had, because you're seeing a lot of teams not traveling. They didn't want to travel much, so they were playing a lot of back-to-backs and that kind of thing. So it worked out very well there, and I'd love to see more of it, to be honest with you.
It is kind of cool, and it helps with the handicap. And like you said, with the playoffs, you're playing the same team, obviously, throughout a series. So when some team might win a game 3-2, but you think, no, they didn't deserve to win that game, you can go ahead and fade them the next time out. Last tidbit I will say about this home and home series, because you mentioned the backup goaltenders. Montreal is going through a problem right now, Brian, and the problem is they don't want to play their backup. He's lost all confidence. It's pretty much been made very clear he will not be an NHL goaltender, at least for the Canadiens. Last year, they wanted to put him on waivers. They wanted to send him down to Laval. The problem is, apparently, there were a couple teams in the league that would have claimed him off waivers, so they didn't do it. Now, this year, there probably wouldn't even be any teams that would claim him, but Caden Primo is his name, and he ranks 4th worst in the league as far as goals saved above expected. You want to know who the worst guy is, though? Jeremy Swayman, the number 1 goaltender for Boston that held out and negotiated his contract for a month. And you're going to tell me that distraction hasn't really, altered his play? I think it certainly has. minus 12 and a half goals saved above expected. Not very good for him, but it's a very good point about the totals. And sometimes you got to go with the streak. I don't see him getting much better. So if the under hits tonight, and then he's in net tomorrow, I'll probably be looking towards the over. All right, guys, shout out to all of you in the live chat right now, tuning in on YouTube, on X, wherever you're watching. We appreciate you very much. And all the support on PuckTime lately has been great. We're putting huge numbers up on YouTube across all kinds of platforms. And we hope you guys are cashing tickets with us over at WagerTalk. Of course, you can find Brian and myself, all of our best bets, best plays at WagerTalk.com. The best price, best deal I would say available right now is the buy January, get the rest of December deal. And that's obviously not going to be around for too much longer. And the sooner you grab that, the more you're going to save. Multiple sports you're going to get with this deal. And we're both running pretty hot right now. And I'm looking forward. I'm going to have to ask Brian for some of his bowl picks, actually. I love betting college football, but I don't handicap it too much myself. So buy January, guys. You get the rest of December for free with no added cost. Brian, Carolina and Washington. I'm curious your thoughts on this one, because a lot of people have been calling, as Brian Power would say, for the regression monster to come and get this Capitals team. It hasn't really gotten there. And in fact, I don't think it's going to get there. This Capitals team is a good team, but this is kind of one team that was expected to be the top dog in the division against the team that's really caught everybody off guard. What do you think here about this Capitals team as a whole? And then what are your thoughts on this matchup? Because I thought the Capitals would be a good team this year, but I didn't know they'd be like this. So what are your thoughts here with this Capitals team at home?
Yeah, it's very interesting when you take a look at this squad. They've had maybe 1 week where they have not played well all season long. I mean, they've been very consistent. And then obviously when the big, their MVP or all-time leader gets hurt, you think, well, here it comes. And they did struggle for a couple of days. But then they learned to play without him. And they've done very well. Now he's in this situation where he's ready to come back, and they've got all the confidence in the world here. If you're a player for Washington, you think, look at all what we did without our best player. Wait till we, get there now. And they've been very good. And, there's only been 4 teams in the NHL this year that own a 55 or higher expected goal goal share in 5-on-5 play, and these are two of them. Carolina's 56.44, Washington 55.15, and the other two are Los Angeles and New Jersey. So these are elite teams, no doubt about it. Carolina we've known about, but Washington's played at elite level all season long. When you compare these two teams, they own a plus 10 net goal advantage on the season, and they did that by playing two less home games than Carolina has. Carolina is a very strong home ice team, so that tells you Washington is real. And you take a look at the Hurricanes. They played 9 of 11 games lately at home before starting this road trip of 3 games in 4 days. They play at Washington. Then they take on the New York Rangers, who is a team totally right now that probably doesn't even want to show up at the arena. And then you got Nashville, a team who's got a couple of wins, but they've still been very disappointing on the season. Capitals have played 5 or 6 on the road lately, and they're also about to play 3 games in 4 days. The host is also off back-to-back losses at Dallas and Chicago. Dallas, sure. Chicago, now that was a surprise there. Carolina's also won the only meeting this year. They won 4-2 at home. Based on the season-to-date data, you would expect this game, at least I expected this game, to be more in the coin flip area. Washington has shown they're a little bit better. Carolina is obviously a quality team, one of the best teams in hockey, but I still think there's value on Washington. The Hurricanes are listed as, last time I looked at, a 135 to 140 road favorite. And as I said, I thought it was going to be 110, 120 at the most. Carolina's only 7-7 on the road this year. So I find value here on the host. 2 straight losses, playing with revenge. Still, if the players know what the lines are, they're in the locker room. Can you believe this? We're going in this game and, they're betting against us. I expect a very good effort out of Washington today.
And people continue to doubt them. They continue to try and wonder when this team is going to go downhill, and they just haven't, Brian. They just haven't gone downhill whatsoever. Defensively, I would say on a large scale, this Carolina's teams, their numbers are much different at home versus on the road. So I'm actually going to take a shot with the over in this game. I mean, you mentioned the success offensively for this Capitals team and for them to be able to still hang on to some victories, even without their top guy. And although I will say that when he first got injured, I'm taking a look right when he first got injured. Some of the games they were winning were 2-1, 3-1, a little bit lower scoring. And some of the games they played recently have been against other defensive teams. But when I look at this Hurricanes team, the way that they play on the road when they don't have the last change versus the way they play at home, it's a whole different style of hockey. I think this is going to be a back and forth contest. I think we're going to take a look at some different player props in this one. I like Jacob Chikrin for the Washington Capitals. He's been a great defensive player, but also he's got point in 4 of his last 5 games. Brent Burns is a guy that Andy Lang always jokes around. The guy's 40 and looks probably 45 or 50. He's leading the team in defensive shots every year. Over 2.5 shots has been a good play for him. And Sebastian Aho is the best offensive guy on that team. Maybe Jarvis, maybe Martin Necas have been pretty good these days, but Sebastian Aho assist prop has been really good. He's not a selfish player. He will pass the puck around. I think it's a good bet to look towards him, but I like the over 6. I think tonight here, both teams contribute. I think it's kind of a change of guard, a change of ways here, Brian, where many years ago when two teams in a position like this, where they're such top dogs in their division, you would see an under. The more I look at things now, whenever these teams go head to head, like for example, Florida and Edmonton played a couple nights ago, right? I know they're not in the same division or conference, but people were calling it a Stanley Cup rematch. The total was 6. The game ended 6-5. It's not like, oh, we don't like these guys, they don't like us, so it's going to be a defensive game. It was 1-6 wins that game. So the whole idea surrounding a big game and the importance level of it, meaning defense, it's kind of gone away a little bit from where I'm sitting at least. So I like the over 6 here. I think when two good teams go head to head, I think we see goals. And Brian, looking towards the home team, I'll tell you, if there's one team that I like at home, it's Carolina. But when they're on the road, I'm not really in a rush to bet on them as much here. So I do agree with you. The home team is probably the way to go. All right, guys, I will say with this third game, the New York Rangers and Dallas Stars, the angle that a lot of us have been betting, and it's been pretty solid, is betting a team off a shutout and betting the first period over in those particular situations. Now, I bet the first period over or the full game over in the last Dallas game because they were in that particular situation. Now you've got New York, the Rangers, that were shut out 2-0 by the Nashville Predators. If that was not the most typical Nashville Predators type of win that they could ever ask for, Brian, they don't even score 3 goals and they win a game 2-0. Like I'm still not even impressed with Nashville with that, but that's for a whole another conversation. I like the angle around teams showing urgency, desperation in the first period, especially. And it's been a really, really profitable bet. Like a lot of people have jumped on this. And a lot of times the actual full game total has cooled off for this angle. It's mostly just been that first period. And it's kind of just like the teams have that bad taste in their mouth that, hey, we played 60 minutes of hockey and we didn't even score 1 goal. So they want to come out really heavy in that first period here. But when you look at this number, it's minus 185. The Dallas Stars outplayed the hell out of the Maple Leafs, and they lose the other night. They're going to be motivated here. Do you want to bet against the Rangers, or is it one of those things where if you haven't been doing it, then you kind of maybe you missed out on all the fun?
Well, if you would have said that a week ago, you would have cost yourself some wins because they continue to play lousy, and very similar to the Washington where I talked about being so consistent and people just don't believe it. The Rangers. You take a look at how this has turned around from the Rangers. Really, at one point this year, they were elite in 5-on-5 play, in goal share. Now they're down to 47.88 on the year. Dallas comes in at 52.78. New York's in a 3-way tie with Columbus, the Islanders for last place in the Metro. They trail the Flyers by 1 point. If you're talking about a division of the haves and the have-nots, that's been the Metropolitan this year. The top half is terrific. The bottom half is just terrible. But there is talent on some of those teams. So it wouldn't surprise me if we can make some money as an underdog as the season goes on. But it's tough to do that with the Rangers right now. Talk about teams that are playing without any confidence at all. This is the one time you don't want to have a team playing in a high media center. You look at the Mets and the Yankees in baseball. You look at obviously the Jets and the Giants in football. It's not been a very good year for New York in sports this season. It's looking a lot better for Mets fans. They've done some great deals in the offseason. But, you're getting a little bit frustrated if you're living in New York City and you're a sports fan right now. We're looking at this one. We've got Dallas owns a plus 22 net goal advantage in this matchup, and that's on the season. The Rangers have been okay on the road. They're actually 8-7 on the road, which isn't bad. But Dallas, just like every year, they've been terrific at home. 13-4 in one of the strongest ice teams in the league. We see it every year. They're just very good at home. New York's finishing off a winless 3-game road trip. They're having lost at St. Louis and Nashville. Offense has been really hard to come by for the Rangers. They've scored 0, 2, 1, 3, and 1 the last 5 contests. This is a much more talented offensive team than what they've shown right now. But hey, you got to take a look at the long haul as well as the short. And even though the Rangers have that talent, they're just not playing well right now. And when you come off a team that's had the success that they have the last few years, you've got a lot of veterans on this team. It may take a while to turn this around, and it may not turn around. I would much rather play young teams and nothing is expected of, maybe like a San Jose Sharks at this point, than a veteran team like the Rangers, who have had a lot of success and they haven't got it done. This is the 6th and final home game for Dallas in the last 2 weeks. So they're off of a home loss, 5-3 to the Maple Leafs, as you pointed out. They're a perfect 2-0 this year off of a home loss, and 8-3 overall this year off of a loss of any type. Dallas is a team that bounces back well. Money has come in on the Stars as expected, But despite that, it's the only side we would consider here. We're, I don't know if we're late to the party, but it's getting more expensive to get in for that, to get in the front door. I still like Dallas, but I'm not willing to lay the 180 or whatever 185 price there is. I'll spend the rest of the day trying to see if I can get them down somehow, playing, a period, or maybe take the Rangers team total under. But I feel pretty confident with Dallas, but it's a high line.
The price of admission continues to rise. It goes up. And, like you said, people at this point are saying, you know what, this Rangers team, we're going to fade them until they show us something. Fade them until they show us something. And the best part is, in this particular situation, as talked about, how good Dallas can be off a loss, let alone a loss that I think they didn't really deserve. I had the over 5.5 in the Leafs Stars game, but when I watched that game, the Stars were the team that deserved to have all the goals. And unfortunately, they didn't get the right bounces. The shots on goal count, hey, as we always talk about, Brian, shots don't mean goals, but man, they had a lot of chances. They'll be motivated tonight. So I just want to take a look at this Rangers schedule a little bit, and also even their scores, because I'm a big team totals guy. But the funny thing is, if you look at their game against the Predators, they lost by only allowing 2 goals. Their game against the Blues, they lost, but only allowed 3 goals, right? Their game against the Hawks, they lost, but only allowed 2 goals. So right now, if you want to fade the Stars or the Rangers, you can't even be betting the team total, because this team is losing and not giving up that many goals. That's kind of the crazy thing about them, is that they signed their goaltender to a big contract, 8 years. Well, I think it was like $11.5 million or $10.5 million. And he's been their backbone. Without him, they wouldn't even be close in some of these games. I'm going to stick to the play that I've been rocking with, and that is that first period over. Whether or not the full game goes over or not, I'm not sure, but I do think we're going to see fireworks from two very motivated teams in their own particular ways. Dallas, as Brian mentioned, is a big bounce back team. Rangers, I mean, not only are they struggling lately, they just got shut out by the Nashville Predators, a team that most teams were able to score on a large scale this season. They're going to be ready to go here. But Brian, you talked about the Metropolitan Division. I just wanted to mention, following this game today against the Stars, here's the schedule for the Rangers: Hurricanes, Devils, Lightning, Panthers, Bruins, Capitals. That's the next handful of games for this Rangers team. Does that not sound like a bloodbath to you? I mean, Capitals, Panthers, Lightning, Devils, Hurricanes. It's not going to get any better for this Rangers team anytime soon.
I agree.
It's tough.
Boston's the only team there that I don't really believe in. The rest of them are really good hockey teams right now.
So, as you mentioned, sometimes when a team is not playing well, you have to just believe what they're showing us until they prove us otherwise. And right now, they're not looking very strong. Brian, I did mention that great deal to buy January, get December. Do you have any promotions or anything else going on? And what packages do you have up right now at WagerTalk?
Yeah, we're winning in just about everything. In fact, as good as I've been in hockey, this is probably lately has been a little bit disappointing. We did play the Knights yesterday, and I'll talk a little bit more about their schedule in a little bit. But yeah, I've got one play up today. It's not going to cost you anything. It's my best bet, and we'll get to that in just a moment. I do have a play in college football, bowl action today, off to a really good start in the balls. And NFL has been terrific. And I don't put out many big plays in the NFL. I do have a 4% play going on Sunday. So I've got a 4% in the NFL. I've got a 3% right now in college bowl action. And we'll be putting more plays up today on the card. Looking at college basketball, haven't seen anything yet. I'm going to look for some line moves there. Had a nice winner last night in college basketball. Been very good in that, by the way. But before I get to my best bet on today's show, I want to take a look, and we were just talking about schedules, and we're around the holidays right now, and schedules are something you really have to take a look at. I used Vegas Golden Knights yesterday. I laid like 160. I think it was 170 by the time it went off. a little bit higher than what I'd like to use. But if you take a look at the schedule for Vegas this month, starting on the 6th, they played Dallas, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Minnesota. Pretty good hockey teams, and they did very well against them, winning 3 out of the 4. The only loss to Edmonton, that 6-3 final in that one. And they had 3 days off. Take a look at what they play the rest of the month here. They stepped down a class, played Vancouver. Decent team, not a great team. And they got that victory last night, 3-1. They're also host Seattle. They host Anaheim. One road game the rest of the month is at San Jose. And that could be a decent spot for San Jose there. I haven't checked the schedule because I think they're going to be a nice-sized home dog there. But then they play Calgary and Montreal at home. I mean, they can really, right now, Vegas has 45 points in the division, 3 points ahead of the Kings, who I think are really good, and obviously Edmonton at 40. Vegas can really put a distance between themselves and the rest of the division by the end of this month. It would not surprise me if they sweep the board. They'll be favored in every single game. But they're not going to show it on every night. But if they have a bad game coming out of this next group of games, I know I want to be on in the next game because they'll be able to bounce back against a lesser team. So that's something I want to take a look at and make everybody aware of. My best bet, we've talked about it already, and that's the Washington Capitals here. Carolina not as good on the road as Washington is at home. Washington's a pretty good, strong home team. 2 of the top 4 in expected goals on 5-on-5. Washington's got the better numbers playing at home than Carolina's got on the road, and we're getting them at a plus money price here. I love Washington. That's my strongest play for today. I gave it to clients as a free play, and I also gave it to them as a 3% play for my seasonal clients. I like Washington. To me, that's the best hockey play on the board today.
And you got to love that price. You got to love that price. Going to be a great matchup for those two teams, but I'm with you, Brian. I like that side. Best of luck to you. And that is a client play. So, guys, make sure you join Brian on the Caps to get it done. And they continue to get the job done as they have shown zero signs of regression this season so far. Bowl played up for Brian as well. Don't miss out on all the great college football action. NHL, very humble man. But as he said, he's doing well in all kinds of sports. So make sure you guys sign up with Brian over at WagerTalk.com. Don't just buy the one play, though. Go over to Brian's page, buy January, get the rest of December for free, no added cost. As mentioned, my play of the day is going to be that over 1.5 in the first period of the Rangers and Stars. Hopefully, we'll get 2 motivated teams coming out on fire with a lot of pace early on in that matchup. The streak, unfortunately, did end yesterday, but we're still on an 11-1 NHL run. Hopefully, we'll take that to number 12 tonight. Looking at one play for sure, maybe 2 plays tonight in the NHL. So that will do it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Wishing you all a great and profitable weekend. Thanks to Brian for joining me, as always. Wishing you all good luck tonight in the NHL, and we'll see you on Monday right here on PuckTime.